Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And as you know, this is the month of May, a mental health awareness month. So we're going to talk about importance of mental health on the journey of motherhood. I think this is one of the toughest job in the world. Motherhood is really rewarding, but it is very tough. When I was not a mother, I used to think that why do actually people opt for motherhood? Because I've seen my mom, she's been working like cooking, cleaning, doing other stuff, it's like you get physically exhausted, you get emotionally exhausted, and you don't know what to do. And there is a lot of pressure, societal, from society, from peers, and from friends, and you don't know what to do. And that journey, although it is the most beautiful journey, but it takes a toll on our mental health. So today we're going to discuss that how you can maintain sanity, whether you're going through a postpartum depression, or you want to become, or you're like going to be a new mom, or you are maybe experiencing an emptiness syndrome. So we're going to discuss different phases of motherhood and what are the challenges a mother can face, and how we can cope up with all those challenges, because everyone have has certain ambition, dreams, desires, and this is like a motherhood is a part our of our life cycle, right? Because that is what God has given us, this capability, this ability, and we have to go through it. But this shouldn't be considered as an obstacle in the way of our career or in the way of achieving our dreams. So a lot of good things we're going to discuss, and that's why I'm so honored to have Valerie with us today. She is a remarkable individual, and we've been connected like for a couple of months. But there are some individual that like clicks you, and she's like one of them. And she is a writer, a podcast host, a nurse practitioner, content creator, and she does a lot of work, and she's a mother of 3 kids. So let's welcome Valerie. Hello, Valerie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ambreen. I am so thrilled to be on your show, and you are such an inspiration to all of us. So thank you so much. The pleasure is absolutely mine.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is definitely a pleasure to have you with us. I gave a very brief introduction that you're a writer, content creator, podcast host, and you do a lot of work, and you're a mother. So, but tell us a little bit more about yourself. That what is your journey from where you started? What are you doing currently, and how you cope up with all these things?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So I will say that, first of all, I just really feel this passion to help other mothers and connect us all together. Because anyone who's listening today, if you're a mom, a dad, or just really as an adult, as a human, we need to come together and support each other. I think it's just we're so entirely hard on ourselves. And I want to shine a light on it's okay to be imperfect. And as moms, we have so many pressures. We have pressures on ourselves. Society gives us pressure that we just really want to please everyone. But in the process, we just really kind of like lose ourselves in the process, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so before I became a mom, I like to say I thought I was going to be this A+ mother. I studied for motherhood like it was going to be an examination. Like some imaginary person was going to come and give me an A+ in the course of motherhood. and I think with my childhood, my parents did the best they could with the tools they had, but I knew I wanted to do something different. I also became a nurse practitioner, worked in pediatrics. I love kids, love working with them. So I had all of this knowledge, all of this stuff like in my brain of, oh, I'm going to do this different. It's going to be amazing. We're going to run through the fields and, if flower fields, hands in hands. I got to have all of these beautiful things for my kids. But when I actually became a mom, it was literally the day I became a mom, my child was taken to the NICU. My baby was taken to the NICU.
Oh.
And I didn't study for that. It was this
Mhm.
eye-opening event of like, what do you mean she, like what I don't know how to cope with this. Like I had all the control. And if everything, everything was going to go to plan if I could control it. Because I knew that
Yeah.
if I have control, it's going to be okay. But
Yeah.
with motherhood, excuse me, with motherhood, we don't have that control. So
Yeah.
much of the time. And I think from day one, that was just like this thing that I had to kind of cope with. And so I remember in the NICU, it was a very kind of short time of my motherhood journey. It was only for a week or so. But I felt like I was being called mom left and right everywhere, which makes sense. You're in the hospital, but they'd be like, mom, can you do this? Or mom, hold your baby down so we can, get this test done or whatever that is. And I remember thinking about it, writing about it. And this was not until later on, I would say a year or so later when I was reflecting that everyone was calling me mom by my
Mm.
name, like almost like Valerie went away. Like my name was a different name. And as I fill out my birth certificate for my baby, I actually have a birth certificate that I'm receiving of mother or mom. And it's a beautiful name. I love the name mom, but there's also Valerie. Like there's also me in
Yeah.
there. And so I looked that up, like what is mom anyway? And it turns out it's a noun, a title, but also there's a verb, which I did not know there was actually a verb mom. Like, oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. And to mother, according to Merriam-Webster, is to give birth or allow one to rise, to care for or protect. And I thought that was interesting. And I'm like, okay, so what does all those things? And that's love. Like love gives birth. Love allows ourselves to rise, and to care and protect allows our families to rise and to care and protect for our families. And so I'm like, you know what? I want to focus on my verb, mom, as opposed to this title that I have all these expectations. Like I was saying earlier, society has all these expectations. When I focus on my verb to mom or to love, then that is really all I can control. That's all I can control in the moment because I can't control what happens, but I can control how I respond. And if I respond in love or if I respond in fear. And some days are easier than others, some hours are easier than others. But I
Yeah.
just love to embrace love as a verb, if that makes sense.
Amazing. I mean, I never actually knew that mom is a verb also,
Yeah.
and you defined it so beautifully. Yes, it's a love that actually gives rise to all these. The actually it gives. I would say that when I became a mother, it transformed me. Like it changed me entirely, and it's like it's a completely different feeling. I am Amreen, and I used to be Amreen, but it was a different Amreen, of course. It was like as you said, there is a mom, but of course there is inside me. But it's like a different kind of Amreen. So yes,
Yeah,
that was like that as you mentioned, like the mom, the verb. It actually changed me. So we
absolutely.
all go through it. We all go through these changes, especially the women. I think this is one of the best, the most beautiful part of being a woman is to experience motherhood.
Mm.
So just tell us a little bit about it. How motherhood brings changes in one's life.
Mm. I feel like it brings so many changes. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, I think that it held a mirror a lot to my inner child a bit. I learned a lot about, I could work with my anxieties, frustration, all those type of things prior to becoming a mom, but it was a whole different ballpark when I had my kids running late, or maybe like there's some worst case scenario I'm doing like this Google rabbit hole search of that I can't get out of, and all of these things that it's like, well, now part of me is like outside of control all of this, and the changes that it made was really just me kind of, I think, being aware of my reaction more from an outsider perspective. Like, I sometimes talk about mental back roads and mental highways because I love the brain. I used to work in pediatric neurology, and I think it's so fascinating. And it's incredible that we have in our brains all of these habits of mental highways of like, maybe I'm frustrated because we're running late, for example. And so my amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze, is going to alarm. And I'm going to feel like my heart rate increasing. I'm going to focus on the task at hand. And I'm going to say, we're late. Oh my gosh, like thinking something bad's going to happen. But really, in reality, the amygdala is very primitive, and it doesn't realize that that's a false alarm. Like, we're not likely, it's nothing bad's going to happen, most likely, if we're running late. And so I think taking that step back, because when I lengthen the space, so Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, I think psychologist, he talks about there's a space. And I think that's so incredible, this space between reaction and response. And I think of the reaction as that amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze, the primitive part of us. And response is, okay, let's take a step back and say, it's okay. Like, it'll be okay if we're running late. Like, let me see what I can do in this moment to calm, to breathe, to be mindful, to be grateful, and lengthen that space. Viktor Frankl says, between reaction, response, and that space lies our growth and our freedom. And I think motherhood has allowed that for me to take that step back, because like my daughter, for example, she's so verbose, my older one. She would say time and time again when the early days of motherhood, like, Mom, you're yelling too much. You said you weren't going to yell and you're doing it. And I'm like, well, okay, I thought I was working on it, but she's like, no, you're not. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I need to work on this some more. And so I think, that's a lot of so I don't know if it necessarily changed me, but it really like shined a light onto things that I feel like I can have all these feelings of love in my head and all of these things of all these intentions. And this is why I'm frustrated about this, or whatever that reasoning is. But at the end of the day, our audience, our kids, our family, they only see how I'm reacting or how I'm responding. And I have to keep that in mind that, like my kids right now, like they're playing, they don't care that we're late. Not that we should be working on those things, obviously, being punctual and all that. But at the same time, I think maybe realizing that my actions are more important than I thought they were, as opposed to, like, thoughts are great. And I love thinking and I love learning, but actions are so important. And that being said, life isn't perfect. Like, sometimes we mess up. And I think, like we were saying earlier, as moms, we are so entirely hard on ourselves. Like, I am gonna yell sometimes when I'm frustrated. And when I do that, I apologize and say, Mom's working on this. And it's embracing that growth mindset as well. So those, I guess, are kind of some of the key concepts I like to talk and write about, is lengthening that reaction time and response time, as well as giving ourselves that grace and that growth mindset of, it's not a pass or fail thing. It's we're continuing to grow, just like anything else in life. We're always growing, we're always learning. And I think it's beautiful to embrace that journey with our children as well, because they're always growing and they're always learning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually so beautifully said that actually we are always kind of thinking that we are not living in the moment, and you're saying, oh my God, we're running late, we haven't done this, we're doing this, and this, the false alarm actually makes us more frustrated and stressed, and that changes the entire thing. And just like as you said, that we just need to just take a pause, step back, and say, okay, nothing's bad gonna happen, just step back and think for a while. And you know what, when I also, because as a new mom, nobody teaches us like that, what to do and what not to do. We've seen
Yes.
our mothers that we've seen, but like living experiencing motherhood is a completely different story.
Yeah.
And as you said in the beginning, that as you have been like working with kids because you've been in the you've been a pediatric nurse, and same with me. Like when I was studying psychology, I thought like, oh my God, I think it's very easy to raise kids because I've learned all the
Yeah.
theories about this. That I know that how the mind works, and I know that I and exactly the same thoughts I had, that I thought that I'm gonna be a really good mom. But then when it happened to me, I said, oh my God, this is completely different from theories what I've learned. And when things are happening, especially like as you said, that if you're running late, our mind is not thinking actually about anything. We're just thinking, we're focused on we're running late and it's going to go bad. That's it. Although it shouldn't be the case, as you said, that we just need to see, okay, this sky wouldn't fall. It is nothing bad going to happen if we are not, if we'll be late or something. So most of the time we see things that is, let's say, that are not bad, but we see as they are really bad, and it's gonna hurt, or it's gonna hurt us, or it's gonna hurt our kids, and that changes the entire perception, and that puts a lot of stress on us, and that puts a lot of stress on the kids as well, and it actually then creates lots of friction between our relationships, between our other relationships with the kid and with the other as well. So now, coming back to the questions, so how we can actually maintain that balance between like that chaos and the calmness, because I know it's very difficult to actually, no matter how much you plan, that wouldn't be you would stay calm during that situation, but you still tend to actually react in a way which you are actually, the way it's you're prone to do, right? So how you actually create that balance, how you create that well-being during those chaotic moments.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it's and thank you for that question, because I feel like that's the ultimate of what I try to do every day, is how do I create that balance? Because it's
Yeah.
every day, every hour is different, but at the same time, it's practice. And I think the brain is such a similar thing in our body to muscles. Like when we practice working on the space between reaction and response, and like saying, let me take a step back and kind of just live in the moment, the more we practice it, the more we can kind of strengthen that muscle. And then realizing that it's normal. It is normal to get frustrated sometimes when our body feels threatened, when our amygdala feels threatened. It's normal to feel these feelings, to give ourselves that grace and to say, this is circulating through my body, whatever the stress hormone is, like the epinephrine, the adrenaline, all of that, and saying, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to give myself that time to let it circulate and say, thank you, brain, for being so concerned about my survival. But right now, this is a false alarm. Like, for example, like if it's chaotic, it's a false alarm that I'm feeling just like frustrated, or I'm feeling like we aren't getting what we need to get done. A lot of the time it is this, like, our brain competing with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is I try to take what I call like mental back roads, or practice those mental back roads every day when I think about it, is to be grateful. I call that a mental back road. So if I'm frustrated, I'm going to say, give myself practice to identify the fact that I am frustrated, because I think sometimes we don't even realize that we are. We don't even realize we're yelling. It's like, okay,
Yes.
I'm yelling right
So
now.
true.
Yeah, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So when I label it as that, then I say, okay, what can I do now? What back road can I take? Let me try to be grateful. And so try and name a couple things that I'm grateful for right now. Or let me try to be more mindful in this moment. That can be another back road. Just kind of looking out the window, being out in nature, looking at the trees, looking at the sky, or maybe being compassionate. Sometimes compassion can be for others or for yourself. or even just smiling, being intentional about smiling.
Yes.
I think that's such an underrated thing. Like, you sometimes, like, studies are conflicting, I feel like, was if you smile, like if you put a pin in your mouth, will that actually, create happiness? Like, but if you think about it, I mean, if I'm smiling, I have my kids are smiling, like, we enable with our body language a
Yeah.
different a different conversation, I feel like. And sometimes, like, we just have to trick our brain, if that makes sense, and
Yeah.
practice doing that. So it reminds me of, like, when I was driving with a bee in the car. I picked my son up from the school line, and a bee came in, and my amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze, got all nervous because it's like there's this something with a stinger in the
Yeah.
car. And so
Yeah.
I had to pull the car over because my brain could not understand the fact that distracted driving was more of an issue than this bee in the car. And so our brains are so helpful, but sometimes can get in our own way.
Yeah, yeah. That's so, I mean, true that we need to practice more. And
Yeah.
as you said, that we need to label it. That's the
Yes.
very important thing, because when the things are happening, we don't know what we're doing. It's kind of we're in the instinctual behavior, the automatic process that is going on. That okay, it's just like our reflex is going on. Like when you touch the hot thing, you just put your hands up and you
Yeah.
just don't realize it, that you did that. And that kind of thing, we need to be conscious about it, and we need to be mindful that okay, we are actually yelling at the kids, so we need to stop it. And because you know what, one, like, since like my kids are also now getting older, and they have like that kind of constant argument which makes my head go crazy. It's like, please stay quiet. And then the thing is, like, the more I yell at them, it doesn't help. They keep is making arguments bigger and bigger and noisier, right? So what I used to do is say, okay, I don't have to just say, don't do it. What I usually do is that I said, okay, if I keep telling them, if I start yelling them to don't do it, this is bad, they're not going to do it, because this is how our mind works. That when they are in this kind of emotional state, they wouldn't work as per logic, no matter how much logical answer I can give them
Yes.
about that. How if they're having the arguments between, like, there's the other kid, like, amongst them, and I'm asking them, don't argue with each other, they will keep arguing it. They will not listen to me. Then what I do is that I stop doing that, and then what I do is divert their attention to something else, because it's very important to actually break our emotion at first of all, and then break the emotional chain of our kids as well, because they are actually kind of stuck in that loop where they have been like arguing. Because like, if two kids are arguing with each other, they are not in a logical state, and they are actually trying to defend. And if I jump in, and then it makes that trio, right? Like three people arguing and nobody's listening. So you need to break that. And how you do this, you just, as you said, that you need to take a pause, come out from the situation, take a deep breath, and say, okay, now how to divert this? Divert your mind through, as you said, like, maybe we need to tell our brain that this is a false alarm. We need to think, and we need to realize our, blessings, so we remain calm, and then divert their attention. They need to pull them out from that emotional state, so they stop arguing. And once they do that, it would become peaceful. So, but this is, again, it requires a lot of practice. And I'm so grateful that Barbara joined, and she is such a wonderful friend. Barbara, thank you for joining.
Hi,
She's
Barbara.
been like sharing that, I asked my kids to help me with dishes. Oh, and she says, not today, gets to 2 hours. Okay, just put three plates into the same. Yeah, that's true. Like, we just need to maybe break it, that, okay, if you can't do this, let's do this. We need to also keep changing it, because if we stop, if we stay on our stance that no, you have to do it, then we'll be stuck in this, same state. So that's very important. Now, like as we move on, as we were mentioning that, in the as a mom, like we are mothers, but we have our own personalities, we have our
Mhm.
dreams, and how to follow that. I know it's very difficult, but how do you manage all these things along with house, like taking care of house, taking care of kids, and your career and profession?
Yeah. I think that, well, it's all a balancing act of like different phases in life and giving myself grace for that. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot do all of it, and giving myself that compassion to say it's okay if this phase in life, like, for example, if when I had my babies, my kids are a bit older now. They'll be 4, 6, and 8. So I can do more things that fill my cup up. But when they were babies, I not necessarily was able to do the same things that I'm doing now, but I could do different things, and just kind of recognizing that and being creative and thinking outside of the box. And I think some of that is recognizing what my inner child wants and allowing my inner child to play with my children, and remembering that there's an inner child that lives in all of us, and to understand what they want and what their values are. And sometimes I feel like valueless are, I really like them. Like, there's like a bunch, if you just like search them on the internet, of like, it'll bring up a bunch of adjectives of things that, maybe exploring, adventure, learning, hundreds of adjectives for those type of things. I encourage anyone who's listening to maybe check one of those out and see, maybe list out 3 or 5 top values, and then say, maybe this is what my inner child is wanting to do. So how can I be creative in letting my inner child come out? Letting little Valerie, or whoever, little Ambrine, or whoever's listening, your little name, not necessarily mom, but whoever that is, what can they do? And so, like, for me, I love adventure and exploring. And now I can travel a bit more. But when I had younger kids, maybe we can go on walks together and we can explore, like they call them forest preserves in the Chicago area. There's a bunch of parks and forests we can go to. And one of my kids, they pointed out that there's heart-shaped walnuts, and I thought that was so cool. So then we like did a scavenger hunt of that. So we were kind of enjoying ourselves and family time, but I also was filling my cup up, because that's so important to fill our own cups up as well.
Yeah.
And that self-compassion piece, I think, cannot be like understated. It's so important that, we have all these things of what we should do as moms. Society shames us so much, and we
Yes.
feel our own shame. But it is so important, that relationship with ourselves, and to give ourselves that grace. Like
Yeah.
John Gottman, like I talk about, he's a marriage researcher, talks about 5
Yeah.
positives to 1 negative ratio. And that's for healthy relationships. So I think, there's that relationship with yourself, and giving yourself 5 positives when you feel the shame of 1 negative, and saying like, oh, I'm just not doing enough, or I'm yelling too much, or I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. Saying, you know what, it's okay. Let me think 5 positives right now to counteract that negative, because we, again, are just so entirely hard on ourselves. And if it's hard to do 5 positives, because 5's a big number, I feel like taking,
Yes.
yeah, like I can't do it most of the time. So I'll be like, you know what? I brushed my teeth, or, I
Yeah.
was able to send that email that I was waiting to send. Like, baby
Yeah.
steps with that, because even if it's not like an ideal positive, what we think of the positive, it's getting your mind off that negative loop. And I think that it is embracing imperfection. And I love, and bring, there's nature so much. I think looking to nature is so helpful for everyone. But in the fall around here, we have autumn leaves, and they change into gold, into yellow. And it is because there's decreased sunlight and there's darkness. And those colors, they were in the tree all along. Like, the green is more the chlorophyll, and it's being decreased because of the sunlight. So I think that's just so important to know that you have beauty inside. Every single one of us has beauty There's so much we have to offer. And even if we aren't feeling that light all the time, it is okay. It's okay to have cloudy days. It's okay to have sunny days. And we need to embrace each other in that community, because we're not alone. And it's okay to not be okay. It's just something that we just need to bring out into the open. Talk to your healthcare provider, talk to someone about it, because I think just this conversation of motherhood is, we all think we're perfect, or other people are perfect, and we're the only imperfect one. And
Yeah.
I just really want people to know that we're not imperfect. And the fall, look at the fall, the trees, those leaves, it's from darkness and it's so beautiful. So anyway, I just think that's, I guess, my whole
Yeah.
spiel about all of that.
Oh my God, I just love it. I really love it. I mean, the way you describe it, especially the tree part, that,
Yeah.
like we have that beauty inside us
Yes.
all along. And it's like, it's just the phases, right? It's just the phases, and it's
Absolutely.
okay to go through it. And especially, I love it that when you said that we need to fill our cup also. It's very
Yes.
important to have, like, to develop that relationship with ourselves and do something that actually brings joy to us, because it's very important when things are going like chaotic, because especially when the kids are young. I mean, of course, like, motherhood is a lifelong journey, right? And especially the initial years are so stressful, because we have sleepless nights, we don't know what's going on sometimes, and like, we can't take care of ourselves, and we get exhausted. So it's so important to actually do something that rejuvenates us, to refresh our minds. Maybe it's just taking like a cup of coffee in just silence, or maybe, as you said, that just go in the nature, looking at the sun, and embrace that moment where you feel joy. And that's very important. That's how we can actually develop a relationship with ourselves, and fill our cup to actually give more. And the other thing that you actually really said so beautifully, that we should always seek help,
Yes.
because a lot of things going on, and it takes a toll on us. Society, peer pressure, friends, in-laws, or whoever we are in the relationship, like, sometimes make us feel that, we are not a good mother, because that being a good mother is something that is actually, I think, is not possible. Having
Yes.
a spotless house with a well-disciplined, well-behaved kids, and they who are healthy, and who all eat all the healthy foods. I mean, this perfect picture is, I don't think it fits anywhere to anyone, and we all trying to struggle. And like, if you achieve only 1, 2, 3 aspect of it, and that's perfectly fine. And then speak to someone if you have that kind of pressure. Please, this is very important, because if you go through it, if you go through stress, depression, please speak to someone who can help you out, and the right person. Like, just not someone who just say, oh, you are crazy, you're feeling that way. No, it's not okay. I mean, if you're feeling something which is not going away, that means you need help. Okay. And please,
Yes.
there is no shame in that, because it's just like mental health or mental illness. It's just like a physical illness, right? It's just like you go to doctor, you can go to psychologist, and you can actually live a much better life. It's there is no fun in living, like, it's just like, there's no fun in living a constant headache, right? And so there is no fun in living this kind of mental illness, or depression, anxiety, or whatever it is. So your life can be so beautiful by just asking for help. So just do it. uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I know we can go on and on and on about this topic, because it has so many things to talk about,
Yeah.
and we've just touched only few things. But I'm afraid, like, we're running out of the time. So, what one advice would you give to our audience today, uh, to maintain sanity in the
Mm.
midst of chaos of, like,
Mm.
this motherhood journey? And, like, I know this motherhood is a beautiful journey, but when things are not going right, we feel depressed, we feel, we're just too harsh on ourselves. But then we need to realize how to maintain all this balance, sanity in all those chaos.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'm on a big thing right now that I'm really trying to work on that positive self-talk and embracing imperfection with counteracting, like I was saying earlier, like that 5 positives to 1 negative. So maybe for whoever's listening, maybe if you can right now, if you have a piece of paper or just think in your head or on your phone, I encourage you to write down those 5 positives right now, or make a note to yourself, an alarm for whenever you do have a moment to do that. Because again, going back to the actions, like we can think, oh, like I need to try to work on this more. Like I do need to have more self grace. But how can we actively do that? How can we make that an action? So I think for me, it really is kind of stopping and saying, like, I'm going to actually, write this down and practice this and just keep practicing it when I can and make that note to yourself. If going outside is something that you enjoy doing, or traveling, or maybe it's just going to like Target or to a store and getting a cup of coffee. If that fills your cup up, I mean, your literal and figurative cup up, then do it, like find the time to do that and put, like, I think alarms and phones, like that can be so helpful to kind of get you out of whatever it is in your mental state of like, maybe just having like, put your name in there, like, Valerie time, like put that alarm and it can only be for a few minutes. I don't know, like, and everyone's so different with what we like to do, but there is something that makes you sparkle and that you look forward to. And so I encourage you to think about that and to then make an action plan. And sometimes that's baby steps, but make those baby steps to be able to fill your cup up. Because really, when you are able to fill your cup to yourself, you can do it to other people. And it's that ripple effect. You can create that pond in the ripple and then, or drop that pebble into the pond, and those ripples will eventually kind of go out and help other people. And then other people will see how you're filling your cup up and they'll want to do the same thing. And we can make a difference in this world.
Yeah, awesome advice. I think that's everyone needs to do it, because if they don't take care of themselves, they won't be able to help others. So that's wonderful advice. So whoever is listening to it, how they can actually, if they want to reach out, what is the best way to reach out to you? I know you were active on Insta and on LinkedIn. So any other way they can reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm active on Instagram with the handle Valerie_Probsfled. It's a very long German last name, but it's Probst, F as in Frank, ELD as in dog. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as I'm on TikTok, YouTube, and I have my name, Valerie Probsfled, as well as To Mom Is to Love. And that's my website. And you actually can go to my website and you can get to any of those that I just said on my website. So if you just check out tomomistolove.com, as well as my podcast, To Mom Is to Love with Valerie Probsfled NP, which is available on Spotify, Apple, and Google.
Awesome. I shared your website on in the comments, but I'll also share all the links of your. I think I'll also share the link to your LinkedIn, but I'll also share the link of your Insta and other social media platforms, so people can find out your work and they can connect with you. So thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to all the other listeners and audience who joined us today. And I hope they learned a lot from our discussion. So thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to Barbara for commenting and keeping our discussion very lively. So thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ambreen. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.